happens at the beginning of the committee meeting. The chair of the transportation committee, Claire, will
we
let
can
you
get
know when
started now. Yes,
for your
so
particular
thank
agenda
you,
item.
Brendan, for recording this meeting, and welcome everyone. It's really great to see some of your faces and hear others' voices. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the September 2nd, 2020 joint meeting of the CB6 Transportation Committee and the CB6 Health and Education Committee. My name is Claire Brennan, and I'm serving as the chair of the Transportation Committee. Tonight, John Keller is the chair of the CB6 Health and Education Committee, and he'll be co-chairing this meeting with me. Thank you, John. This meeting is called to order at 7:03 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez and Community Associate Brendan Berth. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the question and answer feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Unfortunately, no one has volunteered to take minutes for tonight's meeting. So if someone from either committee is willing to volunteer to take these minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom. I am not seeing any hands raised. You can get it over with, the first meeting of the year.
I can take it.
Thank you, Anju. Appreciate it. So Anju will be taking the minutes tonight.
And Brendan, you can make a note, and Claire, I will commit to doing it next month.
Thank you, Anne. That's helpful.
Just to make sure, because I'm new to CB, but also new to the committee. Is there a format that we use, or can I just take it free form?
Yes, what happens is that the board office will send you the minutes, or not the minutes, but send you the minutes template usually the day after the meeting.
Okay.
So however you're comfortable taking them, and not verbatim, more general notes for folks who are interested in what happened maybe. So now we'll take attendance, and also welcome to the committee and to the board in general. And thank you for stepping up. Brownie points. So now we'll take attendance by roll call, and Jesus will conduct the roll call.
All right, everyone, can you hear me? All right. I will call your name. When I call your name, please say present. You will have to unmute yourself. Remember that. Claire Brennan.
Here.
Thank you. Jean Santoro.
Virtually here.
All right, thank you. Joan Barenbaum.
Present.
Thank you. B. Disman.
Present.
Thank you. Charles Fernandez.
Present.
Thank you. Andrew Gross.
Present.
Thank you. Molly Hollister. Molly Hollister. Okay. Yusuf Khalid. Yusuf Khalid. Okay. Sandy McKee.
Present.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano. Phil Napolitano. All right. Matt Roberts. Matt Roberts. Larry Shire.
Present.
Thank you. Ann Seligman.
Here.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven,
Present.
thank you. Ronnie White, Ronnie White, Bob Cohen, Bob Cohen, James Wilson,
Present.
thank you. Ray Knowles, Ray Knowles. All right, we have quorum for transportation. I'll move on to health. John Keller,
Here.
thank you. Abigail Kuzmark,
Present.
thank you. Asia Badi, Asia Badi. Elvi Barroso,
Present.
thank you. Dan Devine, Dan Devine, okay. Rich Mintz,
Here. Present.
all right. Seema Shah,
Present.
thank you. Sean Sherman,
Here.
thank you. Madeline Sims, Madeline Sims. Anju Suresh,
Here.
thank you. Claude L. Winfield,
Here virtually.
thank you. Neil Barkley,
Present.
thank you. And we have quorum for health as well.
Great, thank you, Jesus. So we are still doing these meetings virtually, obviously. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, we have a long agenda, but I just want to lay out some ground rules for us all. No one can speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. I think we're all familiar with this function by now, but if you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear, and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the board staff, and they'll help you out. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Excuse me. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. We are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of this meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So Brendan has the agenda up on the board right now, and the minutes were also distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt these minutes. Transportation committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom right now. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the July 6th meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CD6 website. So please remember the ground rules, and I think Sam, now you can take it from here. And again, we really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Just to quickly interrupt, is the agenda adopted?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Oh, sorry. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt it. Members of either committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you can raise your hand through Zoom right now. Seeing no objections, the agenda is adopted. And now, Sam, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm here as a citizen. I am not representing any agency or any company, and this is something that I've thought about for many, many years. We have not built any bridges to Manhattan Central Business District since 1909. December 31st, 1909 was the last bridge, the Manhattan Bridge. Queensboro was also in 1909. So I've been thinking about this for well over a decade, especially, and it's interesting that it's the health and education along with transportation as a healthy form of transportation, active transportation. I've been thinking about pedestrian bicycle bridges. During the slowdown, my company had a slowdown as many others have had. We figured rather than furloughing people, let's put people to work on some fun projects. So this is that project. So this is pedestrian bicycle bridges, and I'll run through this in probably less than 10 minutes and happy to answer any questions. And Henry Hamill worked on this project and he'll be assisting me. So next slide, please. And the team that I was able to enlist during this time included T.Y. Lin, which is perhaps the leading bridge design firm in the country, if not the world, and the NYU School of Engineering, the Innovation Design Hub as well. So I had partners, a number of engineers have worked together on the plans you're about to see next. And bicycle riding, to no one's surprise, has been rising well before the COVID outbreak. And we've been thinking for a long time how to get more people on bikes. We have 3.8 million people pre-COVID that entered the Central Business District daily. Just under 1% arrived by bike to the CBD across the East River. It's just 0.6%, and there's no way to get across the Hudson River directly to the CBD. So it's 0%. Next slide. And so we began thinking, how do we get people from Queens to Manhattan CBD? How do we get maybe people from Brooklyn, from New Jersey? So we started out with 6 bridge locations, and we ended up focusing on one. We didn't have the resources to study 6 different locations, but we studied them to some extent, but I'll focus on the one that touches in Midtown Manhattan. Next. So the 3 that we focused on from New Jersey, from Brooklyn, touching down at Governor's Island, from Queens, connecting Roosevelt Island and Manhattan. Next slide. Next one, just the development potential to the Cornell Technion campus. Next. This is just a cross section. We think 20 feet would be adequate. That's wider than the Hudson River bike path and pedestrian way. It could be wider, could be, I wouldn't recommend too much any narrower than that. That seems to be fine, with some location where people could stop and enjoy the view, some viewing area. Next. And this gives a view from Manhattan. The structure was developed by T.Y. Lin. This is a design that is used to hang pipes, and it hasn't been used necessarily for bridges for people, but it turns out to be an incredibly cost-effective way of doing it. And they also include the deck itself becomes a structural element of the bridge. If anybody's interested in the structural engineering, we could have a separate meeting about that. But that brought the cost down from when I was working on this previously, from over 200 million to about 100 million. And depending on the ramps on the Manhattan and the Queen side and connection to Roosevelt Island, we're looking at probably $150 million. Next. And this is what it might look like. Now, just imagine from Midtown Manhattan, you could take under a 10-minute walk and be Roosevelt Island, or continue on and be in Long Island City. You could bike ride across in 5 minutes, and it'd just be an extraordinary connection. We'd have viewing platforms at various locations, and what a view it would be from about 140 feet up in the air. Next slide. And this is another view from Queens, what that would look like. You can see 3 towers, one at the Manhattan end, one at the Queens end, one at Roosevelt Island. Next. And so how do we touch down? How do you touch down in Midtown Manhattan? Well, about 20 years ago, I appeared before Community Board 6 to talk about rebuilding the Fdi Drive. And in rebuilding the Fdi Drive, there was a lot of concern from Board 6 and many others. What would happen if we necked down the roadway at times to just a single lane in each direction? And the community obviously did not appreciate that and asked if we can come up with another alternative. And we built the Outboard Roadway. You could see it under construction there. Those of you may recall, roughly 20 years ago, if you were driving northbound on the Fdi Drive in the vicinity of the UN, you would suddenly be diverted to this roadway out into the river. And then you'd come back at around 61st Street. And that allowed the city to work on the FDR Drive itself, to close an entire roadway at a time, so that at first they closed the northbound roadway, fixed that roadway, but you still had 6 lanes of traffic, and then they opened the northbound roadway to southbound traffic, and you again had they worked on the southbound and you had 6 lanes. So this was done before. It was done for cars, and then it was, to my dismay, was removed. I always thought this would be a great promenade for the community and a way of building a continuous promenade around Manhattan Island. It doesn't have to be this wide, but this is one possibility. And I'll show you another possibility. And that is, next slide. Use the 48th Street ramp to the Fdi Drive northbound. That ramp is a poorly designed ramp. It comes in the left lane, which is a problem unto itself, and you have a blind merge. Then the traffic in that lane has to move over at least 1 lane because there's an exit to 61st that follows it, and that creates a weave condition, numerous crashes, and it reduces the capacity a great deal. So one possibility is to take that ramp out. And by the way, when I say possibilities, nobody's doing anything at the moment. This is a citizen just throwing out some ideas. What really has to happen is some government entity has to run with this and fully open it up to community discussion of many more alternatives than I'm showing here. Next slide. And just to whet your appetite a little bit, pedestrian bike bridges are being built around the world. Since 2000, there have been scores in the largest cities around the world. These cities are realizing this is a great way to move people. This is in Paris, which has several pedestrian bike bridges. You can see how beautiful it is. The next is from London. the Millennium Bridge, taking pedestrians across. The next one I wanted to just show you is a movable bridge, which appears in France and Bordeaux. If we can't build a big suspension bridge, as I showed you, a movable bridge may be possible as well. This allows cruise ships to go beneath it. Not that we have cruise ships on the East River, but you can get a little taste. And I'll show you two more bridges, again, just to give you a little taste of what's been done since 2000. This is in Amsterdam, a bridge over 2,600 feet long. And next is just the Helix Bridge in Singapore. And I have many more, but I thought at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And Henry can leave up the slides if you want to go back to something.
Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, so we will take questions from committee members first. And sorry, I'm just getting used to this, but I see Andrew's hand is up. So Andrew, you can unmute yourself.
Claire, thanks, and doing this chair. And yeah, really fascinating.
Andrew, I can't understand.
Sound.
The feed is wrong. Jesus, Brendan, can you find out what's going on?
Something strange here.
I think everyone should mute. Sounds like someone's air conditioning.
Looks like it's from James. James Wilson.
We fixed it.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Anyway, sorry, my question, sorry to, I've lost my train of thought. Who's our speaker? To Sam, sorry. Yeah, I think this is fantastic and very cool. I have to just say, like, as a first manner of business, for us to recommend a spend, right, to the city of like $100 to $200 million right now, in light of what's going on, just seems to me like a hefty ask. You know, and I love this. I think it's great for the future of the city. I mean, is this something that you guys are, I mean, and maybe it's to the board, but I mean, is this something that we would recommend right now, or is this something that maybe we could stipulate at a time when financially the city can handle doing something like this? I'm just the optics of it.
Yeah, so, you know, good question. A project like this, from concept to approval, is 5 to 7 years on average. So the money is not really needed in any large numbers till about 2027. And if you take a look at when the city did its most planning, it was during the Great Depression, when we were in worse financial shape than we are right now. One of the keys to the success of Robert Moses getting things built, whether you're a fan of Moses or not, or somewhere in the middle on that, was he had projects ready to go whenever the money came. And I'd love to see the city and the state do that right now. And I know Colleen is on the line. DOT is constrained from even doing planning if money is not identified in the future. And that's not DOT's doing. Planning money should be for long-term projects. This is a long-term project. So this is the type of thing that we will see some kind of financial relief bill. We will see an infrastructure bill at some point. Whoever is ready will get the money. And I think that New York should prepare itself, should always be preparing itself for whenever that comes up. But right now, big money is not needed for this project.
Right, Sam, I appreciate it. Just to rebut, I would just, and thank you. I would just saying that perhaps,
Sorry.
As we, whether or not we advocate, if we do, perhaps to include a clause about how this would be financially for a later date. Just a
Yeah,
thought.
sure. And if I can answer one other thing, Long Island City is huge development going on. I don't see the city or the state having to pay for this entirely. And I think the upfront work, maybe developers could pay for it. They would get an enormous benefit wherever the touchdown is in Long Island City. So I think for financing infrastructure, and I've been involved in building a lot of infrastructure around the city, it's important to think of all the funding sources and not feel like this is a hopeless moment and we cannot think big. And I repeat, the biggest thinking occurred during the most dire times in our history.
Sam, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sam and Andrew. Sandy had a question, so.
I
I
just
will
want
call
to
on him.
really reiterate what Sam said, that we need to plan now. And I think this is fantastic. It's a great thing for our particular neighborhood. We're already, you know, the touchdown point for the cars. We want to be the touchdown point for the pedestrians and the bicyclists. And I wholeheartedly support the 48th Street location. I think you're probably aware that they are building currently down to 53rd as part of the East Side Greenway. So 48th would be a nice place to help extend that infrastructure down. It would actually work together with it. I absolutely think we should support this. And when it comes to that point, I'm going to vote for a resolution in support. Thank you. Sorry, no question, just a support.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the input.
Thank you, Sandy. And next I'll call on Jean, who's got his hand up too. And also, this is a reminder, if you're not called on, please keep yourself muted. Thank you. Jean, take it away.
Sure. Take it away to where? No, I would like to second everything Sandy said and point out too that what Sam said about the private developers investing in larger public infrastructure is something that we at CB6 developed a model for with Midtown East, which is in process now. So every builder in that section of town has to kick money in for public infrastructure goods, whether it's widening sidewalks, additional waiting rooms for Grand Central, whatever, before they're allowed to put a shovel in the ground. And this is a kind of a model that we could apply to this going forward. So while I understand Andrew's idea about the money, we all know that that's not, it's not going to be good times for New York City. We are talking about 7 years into the future, and planning now and thinking in those ways are how we can possibly get there. And that's a thank you again, Sam, for coming and showing us this.
And thanks, Gene. I appreciate that. And one other thing about the money is, while it sounds like a lot of money, they're still in the 10-year budget of the city and the state, well over $20 billion for roads and bridges.
That's a good point. Thank you. Anne, did you have a question?
I do, but I'm not sure there were people ahead of me.
I don't really
Whatever.
see the order.
Yeah. So I also love this idea, and especially if, you know, as you guys have pointed out, you know, if we can get developers to do it like we did, you know, in East Midtown. I honestly, if it comes, and I'd be happy to have a reso, I'd be happy to support a reso in advance. However, and I totally agree with the idea that, you know, like the best time for planning is in the, you know, like in the darkest days. But honestly, if this was an item on a capital budget and I was prioritizing it, I would be prioritizing the East Side Esplanade over this. I'd much rather close the gap on the East Side Greenway. And I mean, Sam, you even, you know, raised the issue about the, you know, the ODR, and there are still a few pylons left, I think. But, you know, that's like, if we have money, and it's a lot harder to get the developers to pay for that, and the UN certainly isn't going to. So, you know, I guess I'm happy to support it, but just not if there's kind of any chance of it being at the expense, literally, of the Greenway. The other thing I have is like just a little bit more of a technical question, and I use like the 48th Street ramp is mine, so I get that the problems with it. But I wonder about if it would in any way reduce the cost and sort of make it work better, where there's already the development of the 53rd Street, the sort of flyover there. Is there any way that could be incorporated? Probably not at this late stage, but it's just an idea. It's a thought.
You know, that's all good, and I support the Greenway around Manhattan Island. I've been working on that since the 1970s. So absolutely, that should be given priority, but I don't see this as an either or. I see this being a way of also helping build the Greenway. So.
And all the more reason then for it to be at 48th Street.
Okay.
Because that would require or it would strongly encourage the growth down that far.
All helpful.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Brian?
Hi. So, Sam, I have a question for you. In earlier news coverage of this proposal, one of the things I noticed was the roadway width. Just jog my memory, it's proposed to be 13 to 15 feet wide. Is that correct?
No, it's we have 20 feet. I'm sorry. Could you go back to the? Yeah. So we have.
I'm pretty sure it's
wide.
Okay. Would it?
Yeah.
Would it? I guess the question was, would it substantially have to change the engineering and the cost behind this bridge if it was something like 26 to 30 feet, something along the lines of the walkway over the Hudson? And I asked that not to debate the point, but just to say that, you know, we've seen nothing but terrible results from a lot of this mixed traffic stuff from bikes and pedestrians on stuff that's generally a lot narrower than this. But I just want to make sure that if we do recommend something like this, we're building for the future. But if there's a big constraint over available materials and whatnot, you can maybe tell us about that. If 20 feet width is a real constraint that prevents the project cost from doubling or something like that, let us know. Otherwise, you know, would it be feasible to do this at like 26 or 30?
Yeah. I love the question, and the answer is it probably would not increase the cost dramatically. In other words, a 10% increase in the width is not going to add 10% to the cost. It'll be a fraction of that because the towers would be the same. It's really just more roadway. We're not married to any dimensions. I feel this is the minimum dimension, and it's more generous than we have on the Hudson River bike path, where you have mixed paths. So it would be fairly generous, but would I like to see it 24, 26? Sure. The issue becomes, you then have a pinch point where you touch down, say in Manhattan or in Queens, to be able to maintain that 26-foot width. So the wider you get, the greater the width of wherever you're going to touch down will be needed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Larry had a question.
Yes. Hi, Sam. I really like this concept, and I also really like the idea that there's a possibility to tie this in to the East Side Greenway. However, where the two intersect, I think there's a opportunity to avoid conflict among pedestrians and bicycles by arranging for the bridge to approach Manhattan at a different level than the greenway, and that there would be a way to go from one to the other via ramps. And this would maybe even be elegant and attractive, as well as enabling people to remain safe by keeping them out of conflict with each other.
That sounds like a very creative design feature. I hadn't thought about it, but at some point as you're approaching the water's edge, maybe the bike lane is at a different level than the pedestrians, and you separate them and you come up with some elegant solution. When I look at what they've done around the world, and where they have connected bikeways and pedestrian ways, they have used some very beautiful designs. Could be a Helix design. It could be some design that an Olmsted would come up with. Might be a tree-lined path for the pedestrians and the bikes following another path. A great opportunity here. I'm glad you brought that up.
You can call it a flying junction.
I like it. Okay. I have to remember Larry to give you the credit.
Larry's Flying Junction. Okay, thank you, Larry. B had a question next.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if you could hear me. I want to echo a couple of things that Sam said. When we had the last economic stimulus, money went for shovel-ready projects. And so I think if you look at the future, there will be some money, federal money, for infrastructure. And I think this fits with the whole idea of a reconcept of New York and how you make New York very modern and how you bring beauty. So I support the concept. I do agree that there's a lot of work to do and a lot of planning. This is a shell proposal. And as you hear today, people will offer many other solutions, but I think I would support a resolution for the concept and think it's important for New York City and its future.
Yeah, B, you bring up a good point about shovel ready, and I was really disappointed, not in the Obama administration, but in how New York City was not ready. And a lot of the shovel ready that we did spend was just repaving streets that were in pretty good condition anyhow, because we weren't ready with any innovative designs, new streets, new bridges, new plans. So all we got was a lot of asphalt.
Yeah, so Sam, I work for the federal government. I understand how projects are implemented. So that's why I'm supportive in planning.
Terrific, nice input, thank you.
Claire, there's a question from a member of the public.
Yes, I see that.
Mr. Steve O wants to know what the touchdown on the Roosevelt Island section of the bridge would be, what it would look like.
Okay, there are two possibilities. One, if the structure is elevated, it would be pretty difficult at that point. We'd be 135 feet up in the air. So one possibility is to use elevators. By the way, that's how people got connected to Roosevelt Island from the Queensboro Bridge. I doubt it, maybe Larry's nodding. I don't know if too many people remember that, but you used to drive to the middle of the bridge and there was an elevator that actually took your car down. These would be more modern, swift, much as you see on 2nd Avenue subway. Another alternative, which is more complicated, is somehow use an outboard along Roosevelt Island solution. A third is to use the solution that I showed you in Bordeaux and build a movable bridge. The Coast Guard has been frowning on movable bridges, but we have 25 in New York City. And I think it's certainly possible. It's not as graceful looking. It doesn't provide the skyline or the views. But that's why I like when B was talking about as a concept. That's all I'm really talking about, is a concept that people wouldn't have paid attention if we didn't draw something up and try to get pictures in the media on it.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more questions, I am going to call questions now. And it seems like there was some interest in writing a resolution in support of this presentation and this work.
Claire, Sandy McKee requests the floor.
Sorry, oh, Sandy has her hands up. Sorry about that. Oh, and Jean. Sandy.
And sorry, I'd like to move that we vote in favor of the proposal, and I'd be happy to write the resolution, but I'm definitely in favor if we could vote on that as our committee.
I'll second that.
Sounds good. So now we will take a vote on.
Well, can we have a debate on the potential reso?
Oh, what was that? Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to, this is Brian.
Yep.
I had my hand raised in the side, but if anybody else had their hand raised before me, they can go ahead. Up to you.
We're voting right now though on
Right.
a reso of support.
I just wanted to make a motion for a amendment, or basically a point to be mentioned in the reso.
If we vote for it, then we could discuss the reso maybe. Don't we have to decide if we're for or against first?
Yes, essentially the resolve clause needs to be, that's the motion. And the resolve clause was stated as a resolution in support of this general plan.
So
as far as where, if Brian is interested in perhaps proposing a whereas clause or something like that, that can be done.
I mean, I was going to propose something as an amendment to actual resolve clause, but basically I was going to suggest something in the resolve to suggest the 26 to 30 feet width of the bridge, and that's about it. I guess we could acknowledge in the whereas, this is just a suggestion, that we could acknowledge that the sticker, there is a sticker price on it, but that even if we would prioritize other infrastructure in the neighborhood that we assume over a long time frame, that planning and construction dollars would come available at some point that we could plan ahead to get, and we could also bring in diverse sources of funding. But for now, my motion is just to change the resolve to ask for the 26 to 30 foot width of the central path.
Okay,
So this is B. Can I have a point of clarification?
Sure, B.
I thought what we were doing, we're not going to hammer out details. I would support the concept with the understanding that a lot of this has to be worked out. So I'm not too sure any resolution, when we say plan or whatever, we don't really have a lot of details, but you want the concept to move forward. And I think that's different than saying a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. You know, we're not here to micromanage or micro-engineer the bridge. We're here to push the idea that this thing can and should be built, and that between now and 2027, there should be some serious research and time devoted to that idea.
I understand that, but I think that the width of a path is a central.
Brian, can I finish my thought?
Yeah. Let's have one person talk.
You know, so to try to micromanage the exact width, height, depth, curvature, and otherwise aspects of this particular endeavor is way in advance. What we want to do is get out there and say, this is something that can be done and should be done. And how it can be done is the province of New York City's DOT and the other city agencies. This is what Sam has just been saying. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, I did not suggest changing the height, the construction, anything in the bridge other than just to suggest a central span width, because I think that that's an important property of the bridge. It massively impacts how it's used functionally, and it speaks to many issues that we've had in slightly narrower bridges and pathways in the region, where the state and the city have been extremely short-sighted and given basically the width of a single traffic lane to a multi-use path for bikers and pedestrians, and then decided to punish the bicyclists when the very predictable conflicts happened later.
I just want to add to, if we're having open discussion, if
Sorry, we're voting now. If
Yeah.
people would like to help me write the resolution, I'm all for that. Brian, I can certainly work with you, but we need to vote. We've actually said we are voting in support of this proposal. The details we can work out in the resolution, but we're voting.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. So now
Sorry.
we'll take a vote on supporting this proposal by roll call. So when your name is called for your vote, you can unmute yourself and answer yay, nay, abstain, or not entitled. So Jesus will take the roll and tally the results.
All right. Here we go. Claire Brennan.
Yay.
Thank you. Jean Santoro.
Yay.
Thank you. Joan Barenbaum.
Yay.
Thank you. B. Disman.
Yes.
Thank you. Charles Fernandez. Charles Fernandez. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Andrew Gross.
in favor.
All right. That's in favor, I heard. Molly Hollister. Yusuf Khalid. Sandy McKee.
In favor.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano. Matt Roberts. Larry Shire.
Yay.
Thank you. Ann Seligman.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Yes.
Thank you. Ronnie White. Bob Cohen. James Wilson. James Wilson. Okay, we'll come back to James. Ray Knowles.
All right, say yes. James Wilson, yes.
Thank you, James. Ray Knowles. All right. With 11.
James, please mute. James, please mute.
Please mute mine.
I got it. All right. I got it. Okay. With 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions, 0 non-entitles, this motion carries.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sandy, for agreeing to draft the reso, and Brian, I'm sure you'll send productive notes as well. Moving on to agenda item number 2.
Actually, but before Sam leaves, can I just ask a real quick question?
Sorry, Anne, I've seen your hand, sorry.
No, that's okay. I did have my hand raised though. But I'm just curious if you've spoken to the folks on the Queen side and what kind of response you've gotten there.
So far, very positive. We have talked to some developers and we've talked to some people from the community. We haven't had a community board meeting yet, but so far pretty positive.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Sam, would you be able to send a copy of this presentation to our office to aid in the drafting of the resolution?
Just to interject, I actually do have a copy of the presentation. I can send it to Sandy, who will write the resolution.
Oh, wonderful.
As well as to Andrew, who will be working on the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks again, Sam. It was really great to have you here. What a treat. Okay, so agenda item number 2. Again, thank you to the Health and Education Committee for joining us. We're going to be discussing a possible resolution regarding school play streets in our district, including a specific proposal for East 56th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. I'm not sure, John, if you want to take this agenda item.
We could do it together, and certainly with Sandy's help, who was so involved in it. This started out as a proposal by PS 59 to have a play street. Was put forth by Adele Schroeder, the principal. PS 59 is a complex with 2 other schools, including the High School of Art and Design, who also support the proposal. And Matt Bondi, who a well-known member of the community board, was very active in driving this. He wrote the resolution and made this happen with Sandy and Claire's support. We reached out and got the support of council members Kalos and Powers, because PS 59 straddles, if anybody knows that area, both council zones. And Sandy went to the Department of Transportation and to the local precinct rather, and the local precinct has agreed to it. So we have on the assumption that the loading dock at for Whole Foods there is accessible. So we have all of the players in place here. It's a lot of people put a lot of work into getting this reso ready. I know other schools want to do a similar resolution for, I guess, 116 and 281 also want to do play streets, and I guess Sauk wants to do an open street. And I will be completely honest and say I'm not completely clear on the difference between a play street and an open street, but we have a shovel ready, as it were, resolution. It's for the PS 59 request. And that's, I'll stop there.
Hi, so this is Colleen from DOT. Can I just clarify the play street and the open street?
That would be great.
Okay, so the play street would be more of a permanent thing that you are requesting, which would mean that you would have the street closed off for certain hours during the day, and you would have your staff manage the site. They would have, to have barricades at both ends. And also you would allow, emergency response vehicles to go through that street, or if a resident needs access to that street, or if there is a local delivery. So that would be the responsibility of the school. The open street concept, or open school, is what principals are applying for, and that is for the outdoor learning due to COVID. There is a link that we have been sending out to schools or principals for specific schools who are requesting that, so that they can complete a survey. Okay?
That's
so
very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great.
And I think Adele Schroeder is well aware of the need to, maintain the barricades. I actually, my kids went to PS 59, and we've tried to get the street blocked multiple times and failed. And we're back at it again, but this time with the added incentive of, the restrictions of COVID, the desirability of having kids not on top of each other as they try to enter the school building, and all of the other issues that, are pertinent now. Plus the fact that 56th Street, thanks to the residency of our president, is now blocked between 5th Avenue and 5th Avenue. So 56th Street is no longer a complete through street. When this was rejected in the past, and we tried we were told that 56th Street was thoroughfare that could not be blocked, well, it's actually blocked now. So we feel we have a much stronger case to argue for this.
Yeah, and Colleen again from DOT. I do recall in the past that the local precincts was very supportive of this and that they did work with the school to allow for closure, intermittent, well, actually closures in the morning and in the afternoon dismissals for half an hour because of the busing. There was a lot of buses that came to pick up students there.
And that was rejected. We wanted to, originally, we only, I don't want to rehash history because
Right.
everybody's time is valuable here, but originally we just wanted it for, you know, drop off and pickup, and that was rejected as well. And we were very not happy about that, but that's ancient history.
Correct. Sandy has a question.
And it's actually not a question, but it's a clarification that definitely this is a request for a play street. And I think there are several other schools within the district who are looking for a similar goal to close the streets for certain periods. And I guess PS 59 is a separate issue, but the other schools, we thought we might write a resolution in support and just ask for expedited approval. Apparently one school has applied and they've been waiting for over a month for a response. So I guess, Colleen, we might also ask you how we could help expedite these requests.
Yeah, you know what, Sandy, there's so many schools that are applying for this. So, I mean, as they come in, we're trying our best to respond to every school. And keep in mind that the whole concept of Play Street and the reason why schools are applying for Play Streets is because they don't have the additional space. For example, they don't have a gym in the school. That's why they're applying for like a Play Street. Play Street is intended for students to come out for recreational activities during the day because the school doesn't have a gym.
So if the school needs the space only as a staging area to enter and exit the school, is that not a Play Street, an appropriate application would be a Play Street or an open street?
It would be more of an open school, yeah.
But I believe PS 59 is very interested in using this for, I mean, because the space inside the building is so constrained. They're very interested in using this for, you know, recess and other activities of their kids.
There's that, and if I can interject, there's also the fact that we are living in the age of COVID, and the facilities they have are going to be overstressed by social distancing that's going to be required when the children use those facilities. And so the street, which wouldn't have been necessary under the previous dispensation in terms of space, it's going to be it's a different situation now. They're going to need that space in a different way.
That's a very good point.
Anne had a question, or Sandy, sorry.
I'm sorry, just to follow up then, Colleen, should we recommend they apply to both programs?
I would recommend that you apply to both, yes.
That's a really
Thank
good
you.
Yeah, and Sandy, I'll forward you that language and the link so you can share it with the school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anne?
Yeah, this makes sense. I was actually going to say, you know, what Jean said about the, you know, kids and teachers needing all the outdoor space while it's available, you know, while the weather permits. And this street does seem like a pretty good one. One question that I just want to make sure it's kind of been considered is that I think there's a pretty big city bike station on that block. And I don't know if that could be a problem of like kids playing and people jumping on bikes. And I will not say anything that would in any way you know, encourage the removal of a city bike station. But I do think it's something that it at least needs to, like, that interaction needs to be considered. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's always going to be there. And as Brian pointed out, with regard to the earlier resolution, these are issues that are always going to be with us, but I don't see them as obstacles. But
No, not a bit. Just a consideration.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Thanks. I'm just thinking about this in a in a kind of a long-term holistic way. And you know, and I always want, you know, kids to have the ability to, you know, have outdoor time and space. But I'm also just thinking about the responsibilities of the Department of Education, what they should probably, you know, be doing or advocating for on their side. I guess my question is are we looking at this as a long-term permanent solution to turn, you know, like, you know, every time a school wants to create a play street and shut down a street, you know, are we sort of going into this precedent and we're going to do that every single time permanently, or are we thinking about this in terms of COVID? You know, is this more of a temporary solution to allow the students to be outside because COVID is preventing them right now? You know, I'm just sort of, I guess I'm differentiating between, are we looking at this short term or long term with that precedence issue?
So Andrew, it's Colleen. So the play street would be more of a long term. It'll be permanent, whereas the open school is temporary because of COVID.
Understood.
I'm sorry, I thought play streets were done on an academic year, and it was sort of an automatic renewal, but if there's problems, it can be rescinded.
They're done when they are allowed when school is in session. That's correct. That's only when school is in session. And yes, they can be rescinded if the school is not complying. That's correct.
So sorry, can I ask a point of clarification? What are we in this resolution then? I just wanted some clarification. Are we supporting then a play street for the school that would only be during the hours of the operation of the school permanently, or is this something that's only during COVID? I just want to clarify what we're asking for.
The school's application asks for a permanent play street. I mean, Adele's application, let me just find it here. I'm looking at it to be sure. Nope, there's nothing in her application. And I have a copy of it, which has been shared with others on the committees that would say it's temporary.
Okay.
Sandy also had her hand up again.
Andrew, I don't think it's an ideal condition to have the children playing in the street. So I actually had the opportunity to speak to Matt about this resolution, and it's really only meant to be a temporary solution while where they can use it as staging and where their gymnasium is being used for other purposes.
Sandy, if I can just reply, I think what you're describing personally makes a lot of sense to me. I just don't, again, I just don't know if that's reflected in the wording here. You know, I agree in essence with what you're saying.
I think it's a matter of trusting the school and the principal and the parents to know what's the appropriate solution for this particular school.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, Adele has been principal of this school. Schroeder has been principal of this school forever. They have a very active, you know, parent leadership. They want to do what's in the best interest of the kids. You know, and that's, I think, as Sandy just said, we need to have a certain amount of trust in that, I think.
Hi, Claire. CB6 member Matt Bondi, who helped draft this resolution.
He drafted it.
Had some comments.
Yeah, and I had a similar question to him. So Matt asks, why is that a restaurant can close traffic lanes with near immediate approval, but schools have to wait months for approval when children are at risk and need space to exercise and arrive and disperse safely from school? Why were businesses given expedited access to open streets and schools are having to wait months? I think that might, if Colleen can answer that question for us.
Hi, so keep in mind, we have to follow the directives of the mayor, and we did the whole open restaurant in June, and that was to help the businesses, you know, rebound from the loss that they were incurring due to COVID. And what we've allowed for them to do or have is the outdoor dining in the curb lane and on the sidewalk spaces. Not every restaurant that applied qualified for this because either there was a bike share station or there was a bike lane or there was a bus stop. So we were not able to help every restaurant citywide to implement this. Now with the school, the open schools, the issue with that is that we have been getting a lot of requests, just like with the restaurants, and we have to do our surveys and analysis to determine which schools are feasible in order to allow for any closure whatsoever. It's not as easy to close a street down because it affects the network of the traffic in surrounding streets. So that's why it's taking time. And again, the city follows the directive of City Hall. We just can't make decisions without not consulting, with City Hall.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. I think, though, that you have to prioritize the children. And just like you have to get the restaurants back up and in business, which I fully support, we have an obligation to support our children and to get them back into school in as safe a way as we possibly can. So the notion that this is a city directive coming from the mayor, that you have to take your real, close look at how it might affect traffic patterns, to me, I think that you have to prioritize the children more than anything else right now. And that you have to ensure that they have a place to arrive safely and to disperse from school safely, and that you give them an opportunity to distance themselves during the day for gym and recreation, because these are terrible times, and you really have to do everything you possibly can for the kids. And what you have here, and as a parent of 2 children that go to PS 59 or one that recently graduated, is a situation when you have very small sidewalks and you have everybody arriving, even with staggered times, even with staggered arrival times. It's a very crowded endeavor. And so you really have to keep that in mind. And you have to keep in mind too, that when the city did the deal with the developer to develop a high-rise building on the avenue, they only have so many open spaces that are rooftop open spaces. So in order to get to those spaces, you need to take the stairs. And I believe they're on the 7th floor, the 6th and the 7th floor. So you can't get into the school elevators and properly socially distance yourselves. So these kids are going to be expected to walk 7 flights of stairs, or however many they might be, depending on what floor they're already on, to get out to a place to play. And we have this opportunity on 56th Street. Having grown up and lived on, I was born on 60th Street. I lived there for 42 beautiful years, 60th and 2nd Avenue, and I currently live on 56th Street. And so I know a little something about 56th Street. It is one of the least trafficked blocks in our entire neighborhood. It's not only a function of the president's residents closing down the street between 5th and Madison Avenue, but it's historically been a very quiet block. So here you have this really prime opportunity to help the kids. And it shouldn't just be limited to PS 59 and the Beekman Hill School and Art and Design and the District 75 school that it also serves, and the hundreds of kids that go to the pre-K center around the corner. I think what the resolution says here is that you have 2,000 kids that arrive every day. And with, those numbers may be different now, but it should be a citywide directive that you do whatever you can during these times to open these streets for these children, because we have no higher calling than to do this for them at this time. So that I'm a little bit bothered by your response there, that it comes from City Hall, because what City Hall should be doing is advocating for our children.
It's a combination of City Hall and the Department of Education. DOT cannot take it upon itself to make these decisions. We have to consult with other agencies as well. Just like with open restaurants, we had to consult with other agencies. We had to consult with the Department of Health as well as small businesses. You know, I sympathize and I really do understand what you're saying. The priority are the children, and we're working, you know, to the best of our ability to look at all of these streets and to see what can be done. And we are going to be responding to all of the schools that have applied, just so you know.
But by when? Because school starts in a couple of weeks, and it should have been decided already. You know, right when school went out in April, when they were told, actually March, and they were told that it's only going to be until April 20th. And then they found out that it was canceled for the remainder of the school year. Immediate thought should have gone into how are we going to socially distance these kids in 5 months from now? And so, you know, that it hasn't been done already also bothers me. And the fact, the thought, hold on, the thought that we're prioritizing restaurants over children is offensive to me. So I just think that
we're not doing that. You know what? Don't shoot the messenger, because we're not doing that. You know, the fact remains that, you know, school opening of the school has been delayed, and we're not prioritizing restaurants over children. So no, we're not doing that. That's not what we're doing.
Okay, thank you, Colleen, for your response. I think we need to call the question.
Yeah, I think we call the question, and I think we're all aware that, you know, the opening of schools is a separate question, which my committee will take up at its next meeting. But I'd like to call, can I call a question? I can call it.
Sandy McKee requests the floor.
Okay.
I wonder, Sandy.
I'm sorry, I wanted to call, I was going to call the question.
Oh, okay.
And, I'd like to
call it. I second.
I second then, whoever.
Whoever you go. Andrew, it's up to you.
Okay. So we can vote in support of this resolution?
Jesus.
Okay. All right. Claire Brennan.
Abstain for cause.
Okay. Jean Santoro.
4.
Okay. That was 4. Thank you. Joan Barenbaum.
4.
Thank you. B. Disman. I think she has left. Charles Fernandez.
4.
Thank you. Andrew Gross.
Abstain.
Okay. Thank you. Molly Hollister. Not here. Yusuf Khalid. Not here. Sandy McKee.
4.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano. Not here. Matt Roberts. Not here. Larry Shire.
4.
Thank you. Ann Seligman.
In favor.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor. Sorry for the.
Thank you. Ronnie White. Not here. Bob Cohen. Not here. James Wilson. James Wilson. Okay, well, we'll come back to him while he works on unmuting himself. Ray Knowles. Not here. John Keller.
Here, 4, and here.
Thank you. Abigail Kruzmark.
4.
Thank you. Asia Badi. Not here. Elvi Barroso.
In favor.
Thank you. Dan Devine. Not here. Rich Mintz.
In favor.
Thank you. Seema Shah.
In favor.
Thank you. Sean Sherman.
In favor.
Thank you. Madeline Sims. Madeline Sims. Okay. Anju Suresh.
In favor.
Thank you. Claude L. Winfield.
Yes.
Thank you. Neil Barkley.
In favor?
Thank you. With 16 in favor, 1 abstention, 1 not entitled, this motion carries.
Thanks to all who did all the work on it. Sandy, Matt, Claire, thank you very much.
Yeah, and thanks again. Sandy, I just emailed you the link for the open schools, if you can share it with the school as well. It would be great if both is done, okay?
Just put your name.
Perfect.
Speak.
Is that the same as the DOE application, the open street application?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Moving on to the 4th agenda item here. A discussion on a possible resolution regarding the blockage of city streets by the New York City Police Department. I'm not sure if folks have noticed, but the 13th and 17th precinct has put up barricades on 21st Street and 51st Street and not allowing folks to pass through unless they live on the block or are visiting a business on the block. And the board office actually sent a letter back in July to Commissioner Shea and did not get a response on this. So this discussion is not intended to be an open discussion about policing in the city. There is space for that elsewhere. This is really just thinking about these 2 particular streets and potentially creating a resolution to request that they reopen the streets for everyone. So Ryan had something that he wanted to add, so take it.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my observation that the 13th precinct, which is around the corner from where I live, they've had both 20th and 21st streets blocked off. They've converted nearly all of 20th Street into personal parking for the NYPD, placards in personal cars and whatnot. That's basically something NYPD allows itself to do, but it's not something that they're supposed to do. They have generally allowed vehicles through, but they've been kind of giving, especially drivers, kind of a big pause and a hard time to do this. They've been parking equipment still out on 2nd Avenue. So if they're so concerned about equipment being damaged, they clearly don't really care about what the fate is of stuff that's parked on 21st and 20th and 2nd Avenue. As a matter of fact, the other day, the 13th parked a lighting rig directly in the middle of the sidewalk on 21st Street, preventing handicapped access to the north side of the street, right near where the corner of the Petersfield building is. So basically, there's a process that they need to follow to do this, but they haven't followed that process, and it looks like that they're doing a full street closure. Meanwhile, I saw a report on Twitter last week that not only is the 17th precinct doing this on 51st, but they actually printed their own banner that said NYPD checkpoint to hang at the location. So again, it's kind of like, you know, we don't know what they're doing. They haven't come to us. They haven't made any explanations of this. A lot of people have already called attention to this and said there doesn't seem to be a reason for this, and they can't just take over a street. The law, the charter, does not allow for them to take over a street. They have to go through DOT on this. We may want to get some context from Colleen if NYPD has coordinated with them for the 13th and the 17th. If we do consider a reso on this, it should be a reso that says that we want these streets back open to the public, because we don't see anything happening right now that would cause them to need these streets to be closed.
Hi, Brian, it's Colleen. So what you're experiencing in your community board, CB4 is also experiencing the same thing. with streets that are being closed by NYPD for no reason whatsoever. And I think initially this was done during the protest over the summer, but these streets should remain open. They should not be closed for any reason whatsoever. And NYPD should not be using 20th Street for their personal parking because we allocate X amount of spaces for NYPD to park their vehicles on the streets. And that is their marked vehicles, not their personal vehicles. But we know that, again, you're asking NYPD to self-enforce themselves. So these streets should remain open. And no, they did not get permission from DOT.
I mean, I can imagine Christine read you guys a riot act.
Actually, Christine also wrote a letter to the commissioner of NYPD, and I don't know if they received a response.
Thank you for that context, Colleen. Andrew, you had a question?
Yeah, more a suggestion. You know, I certainly understand initially why NYPD closed the streets down. You know, in my imagination, as was said before, we don't really know exactly without them telling us, but my imagination was their concern about the police stations being attacked, like in other cities that happened in the U.S. during the protests. You know, I think it's regrettable that there wasn't a response from the commissioner's office. However, I think, this is my opinion, I think that it would be appropriate to approach the NCOs, the community officers from the precincts, to at least allow them to explain their rationale as to as to give their rationale as to why it's still happening. You know, I tend to, and I understand the police are not always correct, obviously, and they make a lot of mistakes, and sometimes can be tardy. But I think that it would be good to clarify with our local liaisons, to hear from them, you know, what it is before we go ahead and make a call on this. That's just my view.
I think that some insight from Matt, who I wish was here, but he's not right now, was that it is in response to, excuse me, police violence in other cities and earlier this summer here. But we did not get an official response from anyone from the precincts or the commissioner.
I'm just saying that I think reaching out to the precinct is different than the commissioner. I think that we might get a different response if we reached out to the precinct. That's what I'm implying.
Just to quickly interject, the letter was sent to the commanding officers of both the 13th and the 17th precincts, and we did not receive a response from either commanding officer.
Thanks, Brendan. Anne? Was your hand raised, Anne? Oh, you're on mute. Anne, you're on mute. We can't hear you, Anne. Sorry. Is someone?
I'm sorry. I think I was unmuting at the same time you were unmuting me. So I wanted to confirm that this is happening at 51st Street too. And honestly, on that, for the 17th precinct, they have always parked personal vehicles there. Like you see them, it's just always there. And it's even tougher because it adds to traffic loads, and that is a bike lane. And so, you know, there's issues there. But I would, I also have wondered, as Andrew was saying, like reaching out, I would like to hear what they have to say about it. One of my kind of biggest issues though is like, if they're doing it a little bit sort of sub rosa, it's like, it's not going to be marked on Google Maps or something that it's closed. It's going to be marked so people are going to get there, and then they're going to end up like circling the block. And so it just adds more to congestion, which I can testify it's not, it's perhaps not back to pre-COVID levels. We'll see what happens after Labor Day, but business, you know, traffic is up. and people are driving because they don't want to take the subway. So I think anything that's adding to congestion that doesn't have a sort of good reason, we should push back on a little bit.
Thanks, Anne. Sandy?
I would like to reiterate that we have asked them to respond locally for both precincts, and they have not. Matt has been generous enough to give some other conclusions. He mentioned that the General Assembly is taking place in a few weeks, and they think that our president may attend.
No. General Assembly is canceled.
That's not what he's thinking. And most of it is virtual, but that the president may actually come for an address. So that's just, unfortunately, Matt is not here, but that was one of the.
Andy, that's accurate. Just I'm telling you as a fact what you just said is accurate.
Okay. So there's some concern, especially I guess about the 51st. I still think we as a community should ask or should make it known that we do not appreciate this. We really want the use of the street. So I'd like to call the question in a reso that just asks the NYPD to open these streets again for the community.
Second.
Just to interrupt, there is one sort of comment and question from a member of the public.
Is it in support or against?
It's in support.
And we
is
probably
actually from-
we're in support.
Yeah, just quickly, a question this resident asked was, in addition to responding to the current situation, is there anything else we can do to improve the walkability of blocks with police precincts? Recent attempts to crack down on placard abuse have been unsuccessful, so I'm thinking along the lines of replacing all free parking with metered parking, adding sidewalk furniture or trees, planters, bike racks, etc.
I think we can add something to the resolution, kind of thinking more generally maybe, but that is a duly noted request. So are folks interested in voting on creating a resolution in support of kind of expressing our feelings on their.
Yeah, I was going to second Sandy's call to question. So
okay, so let's vote on creating the resolution.
Hello. I will call your name and you may answer in favor, against, abstain, or non-titled when your name is called. Claire Brennan.
In favor.
Thank you. Jean Santoro.
In favor.
Thank you. Joan Berenbaum.
In favor.
Thank you. B. Disman. She is left. Charles Fernandez. Charles Fernandez.
4.
Thank you. Andrew Gross.
Favor.
All right, that's in favor. Thank you. Molly Hollister. Not here. Yusuf Khalid. Not here. Sandra McKee.
In favor.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano. Not here. Matt Roberts. Not here. Larry Shire.
For the.
All right, that's in favor. Thank you. Ann Seligman.
In favor.
All right, thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor.
Thank you. Ronnie White. Not here. Bob Cohen. Not here. James Wilson. James, if you'll unmute yourself. Ray Knowles. Not here. Okay, well, with 9 in favor, no against, no abstentions, no not entitled, this motion carries.
Does anyone want to volunteer to draft the reso, or maybe two people could work together on this?
Whoever volunteers, the office can send you a copy of the letter so that you can use that as a basis.
Yes.
Since I wrote the letter, I'm happy to write the reso.
Thanks, Sandy.
I'm happy to always help with like editing or, you know, just taking a final look at a reso. For Sandy, if you're writing too, I can certainly edit too.
Yes. Actually, Anne always edits more. Anne and Jean are both part of my editing team. Thank you.
Teamwork makes the dream work here. Thank you very much. And I apologize, I went out of order for this agenda. You all will have to excuse me, first time doing this. But now we are going to continue our discussion of the resolution that requested that DOT assess converting some commercial metered parking spaces to general metered parking in Community District 6. And Anne and Andrew worked on this resolution, so it would be great if one of you could say a few words about it now. I don't know who wants to talk, but.
Andrew, you go for it.
All right, I'll defer to Ann then for any clarification. Maybe we can pull up the reso so that the questions can come fairly here. Basically, so with Ann in mind, we basically took a look and asked, and actually in an email, Claire and Sandy, I said I wanted to try to keep this short. It's a pretty short reso. And actually, thanks to Anne for her editing. We just spoke about editing, who really kind of helped to piece this together, I think, in a much more concise and also simplified way. We're basically asking here for DOT just take an assessment of our parking meters, to basically take a look and see if we've got an overabundance of commercial parking, to take a look at, you know, in this case, like how the meters, what the signage is, if it's appropriate, and had wanted to take a look as well at not just commercial parking, but diplomatic parking, which I know could be complicated, but it's there. And the idea again behind this was to create what I call, you know, equity in parking, in that, you know, if there's commercial parking and no one's using it, then we should allow, you know, people to park. You know, let the public use those spaces if no one's there. If indeed DOT does find out through taking a look at the usage of our spaces, that indeed, you know, there is a very high demand for the commercial parking, and that there's, you know, no room for changing signage, then so be it, leave it. But we're simply asking DOT to just come in and take an assessment of our parking signage. And was that a fair assessment? I don't know, feel free to add.
That sounds like a great description.
I also just want to add, as an aside while I'm speaking for a second, thanks to Colleen, and I'm sure she's got a lot of tough things on her plate these days, but appreciation for her work as always.
Thank you.
You'll note that just one thing I'll note is that, you know, this is very much in context with a resolution that we had passed just 5 months ago, sort of asking for a broader look at how curbsides are used, you know, in the district. And we recognize, you know, how stretched thin DOT is now, how much is going on. Although it also seems like stuff is getting done faster than ever. So you know, kudos to you on that. But this is very much in conformity with other things. And maybe it's just a little bit of a more focused request, but it's very consistent with something that the board has already asked for.
Thanks, Anne. We have a question from Larry.
Yes, I am very concerned about the DOT being stretched as far as resources go, especially since at this moment they're being asked to prioritize the open streets and other immediate projects. I do want to say that it's a good idea to consider these things, but I'm not sure that pressing for it at this particular time, also because things are very much in flux and we don't know how patterns will change in the next 6 months, whether a study of this for the period going forward really is going to be helpful.
I can respond, or Claire.
Sure, take Andrew.
I mean, I think the fact, I mean, I'll just speak freely. I think the fact that we voted in favor of a, $200 million bridge, and and that's going to also be in the future. And we talked about looking forward. I think this also is, looking forward. And if Colleen feels that DOT, can't handle this, I would defer to her. But certainly, we're not saying this should be done tomorrow. It should be done. It should be done at some point. And I would defer to Colleen then to answer if it's something that, when or how, but it would be DOT's responsibility.
Yeah, you know what? Larry raises an interesting point there, because we really are stretched with what we can do. And again, with the resources that we have right now, because we're trying to prioritize a lot of the safety projects that we have presented to the community boards. And there have been some cutbacks that, we have to deal with. And I'll be honest with you, Andrew, I don't think this is going to be a priority for us at the moment. But not to say the least that the community board should not put this in writing and send a resolution to DOT asking us to take a look at this, whether it's next month or whether it's 3 months from now, But I would like to stress that you should have a specific area in mind. Don't make the resolution too broad, because we don't have the resources to go out there to do all of that work. I would just, define a specific area that you would like us to look at first.
I think that's something that Ann and I actually had discussed at one point, about if we wanted to look at a specific area. I don't know, Ann, if you wanted, you're muted, Ann.
Yeah, actually, totally my bad, because the reso should say assess in Midtown East, not in Community District 6.
Yeah,
so that's like totally my bad that we discussed that change, but I didn't make it. So
Colleen, knowing that Ann and I actually had discussed and intended to have Midtown East specifically added in here, would that perhaps change the calculus of the capability of DOT to take a look in the future?
I would put it in such a way where you have like a limit, like, starting from a specific street or corridor, maybe within 5 blocks radius instead of Midtown East, because Midtown East is very broad. I would start off small to have us do the survey as opposed to doing a wide range.
like if we said, sort of 52nd to maybe not 52nd, maybe 50th to 44th east of 3rd or something like that, or east of Lex. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, define the area that you want us to look at, and remember, keep it small, because we don't have the resources to look at the whole Midtown East.
Right. Okay.
And we can take it from there and see the usage. We can see if the usage is well worth it.
Exactly.
Using the space, the curbside space.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So procedurally, then, Claire, would we come back? Would Ann and I edit that and come back with a, or I don't know if we vote on this as is, or if we,
Right, I actually am not so sure on that, but Sandy has her hand up, so hopefully she can provide some clarity.
I'd like to call the question that we support this resolution and we modify it to give specific areas, but that we do support the resolution.
Second.
Great. Okay, so we will now take a vote on supporting this resolution by roll call. So when your name is called, unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay. When I call your name, please vote in favor, against, abstain, or not entitled. Claire Brennan.
Abstain for cause.
Jean Santoro.
For.
Thank you. Joan Berenbaum.
In favor.
Thank you. B. Disman. Not here. Charles Fernandez. Charles Fernandez.
Against.
Okay. Andrew Gross.
in favor?
Okay, thank you. Molly Hollister. Not here. Yusuf Khalid. Not here. Sandy McKee.
In favor.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano. Not here. Matt Roberts. Not here. Larry Shire.
Against.
Okay. Thank you. And Seligman.
In favor.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor.
All right, thank you. Ronnie White. Not here. Bob Cohen. Not here. James Wilson. Is James Wilson still here? All right. Ray Knowles. Not here. With 6 in favor, 2 against, and 1 not entitled, this motion carries.
Thank you, Andrew and Anne, for your work on the reso.
Claire, thank you, and Colleen, thank you.
So next item is the review of a red light camera request for 54th Street and Sutton Place and signage for 53rd Street and the FDR Drive. Sandy, I'm wondering if you could speak a little to this.
Yes, these were requests that were made by the at the last police council meeting from the Sutton Place residents. And specifically 53rd is an exit from the FDR. And it merges with Sutton Place. So the exit, Sutton Place and 53rd Street have a fairly funky junction. And we'd like the DOT to study if there's a way to deal with that. Right now, it's almost impossible to cross the street there. If you happen to walk down 53rd Street on the south side and you get all the way down to the FDR, the cars are traveling at very high speed and it's difficult to cross the street. So that's what they're looking for.
Thanks, Sandy. Anne has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to point out that there's also a playground there at like where that exit is off 53rd Street. So it's like a little bit extra dangerous. But I also think, didn't we ask for this like years ago? And I think we asked for a crosswalk there.
And, you know, again, in the spirit of DOT being overwhelmed, we just like to get this as something that in the future, if they can study, especially now that the Greenway is going forward in that location, a lot of people will be utilizing this area. So it may be future planning, but it's just something we want the DOT to look at. So we'd like to put it into a resolution.
And that's a great idea, Sandy. You're right, absolutely right.
Can I call the question?
Yes, you can.
So I call the question that we ask the DOT to study this area and in lieu of the future developments and to study the existing conditions.
Should we renew our request for a crosswalk there at the same time?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's vote on this resolution. Jesus.
All right, this is the 54th Street and Sutton Place, Rezo?
Yes.
Okay. All right. When I call your name, please vote in favor, against, abstain, or not entitled. Claire Brennan.
Not entitled.
Thank you. Gene Santoro.
I'm entitled and I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. Joan Berenbaum.
In favor.
Thank you. B. Disman has left. Charles Fernandez.
For.
Thank you. Andrew Gross.
In favor?
Thank you. Molly Hollister. Not here. Yusuf Khalid. Not here. Sandy McKee.
In favor.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano. Not here. Matthew Roberts. Not here. Larry Shire.
In favor.
Thank you. And Seligman.
In favor.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
I'm in favor. Can you hear me?
Okay, that was a very low, but I think that was in favor. Ronnie White. Not here. Bob Cohen. Not here. James Wilson. Not here. Ray Knowles. Not here. With 8 in favor and 1 not entitled, this motion carries.
Thank you, Jesus. Okay, Colleen, it's your time to shine here. Thank you for bearing with us. There were a few things that we had mentioned that we wanted an update on. So if
Sure. Let me know what they are. I think Sandy had emailed me a list, right?
Yes, yes.
Sandy, do you have that list in front of you? Because I'm in my kitchen right now.
Let me pull it up too. Yes, so we were asking about the city bike station at East 15th and 3rd Avenue.
So that's the city bike station that we've gotten quite a few complaints about. And we have City Bike, actually our bike share division is looking into it. And we should have a response by early next week for the board. We also received complaints from, I think from quite a few elected officials as well, of residents complaining about the station and the fact that it blocks the building's main entrance, if I'm not mistaken. So bear with me and, you know, I will get you all a response by early next week, okay?
Thank you. And then the temporary bike lane on 2nd Avenue, we've witnessed, members of our board has seen it, you know, the barrels on the sidewalk. Citizens have kind of taken action and fixed the lane themselves. So I was wondering if there was any
Let me, I know with the barrels, I know they've been moved and cyclists are pretty much uncomfortable with that area. They feel that it's not safe. I will check to see what we can do in the meantime, if there's any other measures that we can take or anything that we can install there to make it more safe.
Colleen,
And
if
I'm
I
pretty
could
sure
just
we-
interject,
Go ahead, Dean. Yeah.
we'd really appreciate that because it's members of the board who've been keeping the barrels, as well as just regular citizens, keeping the barrels more or less sort of some of the time kind of where they're supposed to be, because they've been moved consistently. And Ted mentioned when he was here the last time that they can only really come around kind of maybe if they're lucky once a week, more like a couple of times a month. And that's clearly not going to cut it because these things are moving daily. So we'd appreciate whatever upgrade you can give us that'd be even somewhat more permanent than those barrels.
Thank you. And I'll discuss it on my staff call with Borough Commissioner Pinkar. We'll put our heads together and we'll see what we can do. Because, and thank you, committee members, for putting those barrels back. That means a lot.
Thank you.
I'll keep you
Yeah,
posted.
and just continuing on that topic, we did resolve to request a more permanent solution there on Second Avenue. So is there any status on creating a more permanent solution like we see uptown by the bridge?
Right. And again, I know our bike team is working on a, more of a permanent solution that they can share with the community board. And when we do have something put together, we'll, let you know, or I'll let you know. But I'll follow up with them and I'll ask them what the timeline is with that.
And then we're looking about the status of the 38th and 39th Street protected bike lanes that were.
Oh, that's going in real soon. Implementation is scheduled in September. That's actually going in real soon. We have finalized the we've finalized a lot of the outstanding issues that we've had with our various divisions. So we are moving forward with implementation. There is nothing preventing us from moving forward with that. So I would imagine sometime in September. I think we sent out the What's Happening Here flyer to the community board. Brendan, Sandy, did you see that, or Jesus?
That, Colleen, that flyer ran in our newsletter yesterday.
All right, so good.
Yes, and Kimberly did send something to say that it was being implemented, that they had started, which is great, but that it's a very long-term, she noted it may take a while.
Yes, because it spans 3 community boards.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then finally, if you could give kind of a general update on the Open Streets program. Will it continue? Can the parking be eliminated long-term?
Right. So what I know for sure is that Open Street, it's a temporary program that we've put together because of the COVID. I don't know if there are any plans to extend it. I have a feeling we might extend it, but as soon as I have more information, I will share it with the board. But at the moment, I have not heard of any plans to extend it.
Thank you, Colleen. We have a few questions from our committee members. So Larry.
Yes, first, Colleen, this is old business, 14th Street L train restoration. The project is pretty much wrapped up, except right now it's a kind of a no man's land around the bus stops. I've seen people sitting in the new bus shelters, but the signs haven't been moved over, restoring the bus stops at Avenue A and Avenue B to the original locations. And so I just wanted to call Colleen's attention to that should take place sooner rather than later, along with bringing the ticket validation machines over, which is, as I understand it, MTA's responsibility. And then once the 14th and B bus stop has been relocated, I'd like to know when the City Bike station will be coming back to that northeast corner of 14 and B. And that's business.
Okay, great. Larry, do me a favor. Can you send me an email tomorrow with the stops that you're asking us to look at restoring now that the work is completed? I'll be happy to coordinate that with our bus stop management and with MTA, and we'll start the paperwork. We'll start processing the paperwork.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much ready to go, except you want to move over your own signs. The new bus stop shelter is in place, I think, over at Avenue B and Avenue A. I'll have to verify that, but
Can you verify that and send me the
tomorrow.
locations and with the city bike station as well? And I'll confirm when we'll put the station back.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do that for you tomorrow. And I have an item of new businesses, as long as I'm here. This is not a Colleen question. This relates to the New York City Ferry, the route that was changed for Stuyvesant Cove. It used to be the Lower East Side route, and now it's the Soundview route. Unfortunately, maybe someone from the board can bring this to Hornblower's attention, that their new app doesn't work from the Stuyvesant Town and Peter Cooper Village neighborhood. It doesn't tell you to go to the Stuyvesant Cove ferry stop if you want to go to Wall Street. Instead, it sends you on a 22-minute walk up to 34th Street so that you can just reverse course and stop at the ferry stop on your way down to Wall Street. It really is something that I've not been able to communicate either to Hornblower on my own or to Apple Maps. Maybe somebody else in this group has some ideas, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, thanks, Larry. I think we can look into that. Anne had a question for Colleen specifically.
Yes, actually, I have a couple of questions, 3, in fact. One is about the painting of traffic lanes on First Avenue, which was repaved like in the 50s months ago, and it is still bumper cars if you drive north on First Avenue. So I'm just wondering if you have a timeline for when the lane painting will be done.
What's the location, Anne? Because I'll follow up with the contractor.
You know, it's basically the 50s on First Avenue, like up to like 50 to 50. I think it gets better after 57, but it's like, and there's a lot of traffic exchange in that stretch, so it can be a little hairy, especially as traffic is getting worse.
I'll follow up with our geometric design and find out when that is scheduled to be implemented. Usually what happens is that whenever we mill and pave a street, the markings will go in a few weeks later.
Yeah, but it's been months.
It's been months. I'll raise that with them.
That's why I'm raising it, yeah. And the second issue is also about a paving issue, that there's a problem that I have complained about this literally for years, but only did the right thing and put in a service request in July. But 3rd Avenue, the east side of 3rd Avenue between 45th and 44th Street, and I'm happy to give you the service request number if you like. It's been closed, it was transferred to DOT, but the water pools there, it's sitting right out there are 4 restaurants there, one of whom I thought the management might join us today, and even if they did, they may have given up by now. But I literally changed my route so as not to walk down that street, because people it's where the restaurant garbage sits. And not to get too graphic, but just imagine, they hose it down and the water doesn't go anywhere. And so then it sits baking for hours. And it will never clear away. And I understand there's an issue about it has to pool for more than 7 days. It literally never goes away. There's a Wendy, there's a Dunkin' Donuts, there's the beer house there. And if anybody is familiar with that, it's just disgusting. And it really needs work.
So this is the east side of 3rd Avenue between what and what?
44th and 45th.
44th and 45th. Just to give you an insight about ponding conditions, we get a lot of complaints about ponding conditions citywide. And to be honest with you, they are tough locations to tackle because the only time that we can pretty much address the ponding condition, it's usually when we would do some wear and tear work or when we mill and pave a street. In some cases, there might be a catch basin that's missing in the corner, which does not provide for an outlet for the water to flow. In this case, the restaurant owners are washing their sidewalk and they're leaving.
No, but the problem is that it doesn't get to the corner. It's not that the drainage is blocked between, it's sort of more mid-block.
If the drainage is blocked, then DEP should come out there and clean the catch basin.
No. That's what I'm saying. That is not the problem. The drainage is not blocked. And this problem, I think, actually was created the last time that street was paved, and there was just an issue with the way it didn't, there was just a little bit of a glitch in it. So it really, but I walk by there on an 85-degree day and you will cross the street. And I feel terrible because, Beer House is trying to have outdoor dining there. And, it smells like rotting garbage even. And like I say, it's not the business's fault. They try and sweep the water away after they've done it. It doesn't have a place to go because there really is a problem. It's not a drainage issue in that, it never gets to the drains at the corners.
Yeah, but if they're sweeping it, where are they sweeping it to? If you're sweeping
they're basically sort of try and sweep it out into the street in hopes that it'll make it there. But it will never flow from that
space. And the next time you're out there, can you email me a photo?
I have plenty of photos. I will forward. I will, and I'll give you the exact location. The third question I had was a question that I think the board office asked you, but I'm not sure they got an answer, which is about what the bus lanes are painted with, because I had a seriously adverse reaction, and I'm sure you do all kinds of toxicity tests, but I was just kind of curious to be well, what is that? Is this something I should look into for my own personal health? And it seemed like a pretty straightforward question, and we didn't get an answer, and that made me want to pursue it a little bit more.
So I don't know the mixture of the paint that we use. I mean, I do know that we've used this particular brand citywide to paint the bus lane. And I do know for sure that it's not toxic because the city would not use a material that's toxic. Right. Yeah.
But still, I'd like to know what it is, because this may be an issue that I personally have. And again, it seems like this should not be secret information, right?
No.
How do I find this out?
It's really not secret information. I mean, if you really want to pursue it, I would suggest that you submit a FOIL request.
Okay, and I guess that's what I can follow up with you, but it's if I have to submit a FOIL request to get this, that makes me think, oh my God, there is something to hide. That kind of scares me.
No, there's nothing to hide. We would not jeopardize.
Of course, I know that.
Citizens in Manhattan by using a paint that's toxic. I mean, no, then that would be a liability issue for us.
Of course, but seriously, I did have a pretty bad reaction. So just saying.
What was the reaction? Was it something? Did you?
It was extreme GI experiences and a really bad headache, when I first smelled it. And then a couple of days later, or about a day or two later, it was still off gassing. And I came home and immediately got a headache that lasted about 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So it's you do not want to know the details of the GI.
All right, Anne. I will try my best to see what's inside the mixture.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll follow up with you, and I'll send you the pictures on 3rd Avenue.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. Yes.
Me too. I'm sorry.
Short and nasty.
Okay, thank you, Anne, for those questions.
Thanks, and
Andrew?
I'm sorry to have been so extraordinarily active on your first night as chair, but whatever.
Actually, Claire is
Don't
doing a
be sorry.
fantastic job.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, everyone. Andrew, you wanted to
Yeah,
ask a question.
yeah, this is for Colleen, and it's really a new business item.
Sure.
And so, you know, I've noticed a couple things. It's all one question. Beginning at towards the beginning of I'm tired. At the beginning of open streets, I guess, and the outdoor dining, let's call it. You know, we have a cluster of businesses, restaurants on 3rd Avenue. You're probably aware, Colleen, like in the 50s. And, you know, they've advocated as a group. They've presented to us as a group before. And, you know, we were supportive of their efforts. And, you know, without debating the future of outdoor dining and whatever, I was chatting with one of the owners and, you know, basically just said, hey, like, how's it going? What's your experience been? And I've had the pleasure of sitting outside many nights on 3rd Avenue eating in our local restaurants. And this owner had basically said, look, one of my fears is that we're going to have a car accident or something's going to happen with the city bus because, you know, the streets, Colleen, as we all know, we're not designed for what we're using them for right now. We've found a very quick solution. Again, you know, we could debate good or bad, but we found a quick solution that the city's implementing. And what's really happened is, in addition to the fears of this owner of having a serious accident, we've actually seen, you know, and I've seen them in the news, there have been several incidents where, you know, cars have gone into outdoor dining. There was this pretty serious one on 2nd Avenue in the 90s, right? If I recall, there was a collision and a car actually went through the wood that restaurant had used and went right through, like, into, I think, multiple restaurants. So I'm not suggesting that, you know, we should get rid of our outdoor dining. You know, personally, I think it's needed and for a lot of reasons, but I think the challenge is, and my question to you, Colleen, is there some way, or could we put up a resolution to help that tries to standardize or asks for DOT to maybe think of creative solutions to improve the safety or at least the standardization of the outdoor dining if we're going to have it for longer? Again, whether that means the way that they're identified, like visually, whether that means if the city has, like, I know this may sound crazy, whether there's, you know, like more like concrete or other types of like physical barriers that could be moved and then removed later on. I don't know, but I'm just open-minded to how can we improve the safety so we don't have a big tragedy, you know, where people's lives are lost, you know, on the streets.
I know. And you know what, Andrew, that's something we don't want, God forbid. But, you know, when we initiated the outdoor dining program, there was a lot of thought that came into play with, of course, safety, because keep in mind, you know, patrons are sitting in the curb lane, and that's why we requested these restaurants to submit the layout that they were putting out there. And we required, you know, sturdy barriers, you know, that interlock so that, you know, that prevented, you know, cars from going through or hurting, and, you know, pedestrians who are sitting out there, or patrons who are sitting out there. I'll be honest with you. I mean, there is no one quick solution. I've seen the news as well. I've seen the accident that happened in Brooklyn. Thank God, you know, that wasn't, you know, involved any fatality. And I guess what I should tell you, or what you probably would like to hear, that, you know, I don't know if this is going to be something permanent, because keep in mind that, you know, I think this program is up until October, which is when we still have good weather. And even if it does become permanent, we are going to be looking at a solid plan that will focus, of course, on safety. And I'm sure that it will be standardized, but also keep in mind that each location is unique in its own way. There are some locations that can have the curbside dining and some locations that cannot have it. Whereas some locations can have, you know, outdoor dining on the sidewalk because they have a wide sidewalk, whereas others can't have it because their sidewalk is very narrow. So I think all of that will come into play, and we're just going to have to, figure that out when that time comes. Again, if this is going to be something permanent, and of course we have to look at the safety, measures that we'll want to implement to make this a standardized, concept.
So Colleen, if I can just summarize, and again, thank you for that. It sounds like what you're saying to us is that there's no action that you see from our side now, but that in the future, this issue may come up depending on the outcome of the outdoor dining.
Well, there's no action at the moment because we've asked, restaurant owners to have safety barricades out there, which is what we think, will help. But I guess in the future, if this becomes more permanent, of course, there's going to be more of a solid structure out there that's going to be standardized,
Sure. Okay.
That's what we're thinking.
Thank you.
But at the moment, I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer for you. I really don't.
So that sounds like the answer, that it sounds like there's nothing for us to do right now on this.
Correct.
Which is an answer. So thank you.
Thank you. Sandy?
I just wanted to say I did ask Matt, who has a contact with the 17th Police Precinct, if there had been any accidents in our neighborhood. There have not been. And it sounds like, restaurant owners actually have come up with a pretty good solution, which is to park a car in front of any of the open dining areas that they can. Not all of them are able to do that, but that seems to be a good solution.
Yeah. And restaurant owners are being very creative too when it comes to protecting their patrons. I mean, I just don't see them being negligent. I mean, and also note that these crashes, how they occurred, it's motorist negligence. That's what it is. It's not the fault of the restaurant.
No, I just to be clear, Colleen,
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that it's the restaurant's fault that there's
No. Yeah, neither am I. No, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anne, is your hand raised? You just muted yourself.
Yes, no.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I know Gail Brewer has been having this contest of like the most creative. I think it says sidewalk, but I think it's both sidewalk and sort of curbside dining. And so, this may be something that the Borough President's Office is a good resource because they will have seen so many different configurations that, there may be some learning going on there that it's worth reaching out to them. So I don't know if that's something that might maybe come up in Borough Board or something. I don't know, just a thought.
Thanks, Anne. Okay, so I am going to waive my report, seeing as it's 9:15 and I don't really have much more to say anyway. But does anyone have any old or new business that you all want to bring up? I'm seeing some head shakes. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to raise your hand, but I'll take that as a no now. Thank you, everyone. Oh, Abby, did you have anything to report from Health and Education?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Okay. Thank you, Anne. If there are no objections here, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. Seeing none and no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 9:16 p.m. Thank you all for
Good night, all.
bearing with me. Have a good night, and we will see you soon.
Congratulations, Claire.
Thank you, Anne.